Hello aspirants, welcome to Prelims in Focus, your daily UPSC Current Affairs revision series by Insights IAS. In today's session, we'll cover fast-track courts, the freedom fighter Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the 2026 Commonwealth Games, the US-Saudi 123 agreement, and the proposed offline UPI system. And in mapping, we'll explore Romania. So without any further delay, let's get started. Let's begin with a genuinely important justice delivery topic, fast-track courts or FTCs. Here's the context. The Prime Minister of India announced the establishment of fast-track courts to deliver swift and stringent justice for offences related to examination paper leaks. Now, before we get technical, let's understand this in plain words. Imagine a court that skips the usual long queue of pending cases and focuses only on specific, urgent matters, hearing them almost every single day until they're resolved. That's exactly what a fast-track court does. So what exactly are these courts? Fast-track courts are special, temporary judicial benches, established to expedite the trial of specific, high-priority offences, complex corporate frauds, or cases involving vulnerable demographics. They aim to reduce backlog and accelerate the judicial process by holding daily hearings and adhering to strict timelines. On the constitutional framework, these special courts must satisfy Article 14, the guarantee of equality before the law, a foundational check that ensures fast-tracking doesn't become unfair to the accused. Now, let's go through the governing statutory frameworks and guidelines because there's genuinely a lot packed into this history. The 14th Finance Commission, covering 2015 to 2020, recommended setting up 1,800 FTCs to address heinous crimes like murder and kidnapping, along with property disputes pending over 5 years. The Nirbhaya Fund centrally sponsored scheme from 2019 established fast-track special courts or FTCs, dedicated exclusively to trial cases under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act and rape cases. The Public Examinations Prevention of Unfair Means Act 2024 serves as the statutory backdrop for the newly proposed fast-track courts, specifically targeting organized paper leaks and examination fraud. That's the direct legal foundation for today's context. And the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita or BNSS recommends completing trials within 2 years and sexual offense trials within just 2 months. Now coming to the key functions of these courts, and this is genuinely dense with numbers, so let's slow down. On target disposal rates, FTCs operate with a target disposal rate of 165 cases per judge annually, or roughly 41 to 42 cases per quarter. On high efficiency ratio, FTCs dispose of an average of 9.5 cases per month, which is nearly 3 times higher than regular trial courts, which manage just 3.3 cases per month. Hold that comparison in mind, it's a genuinely striking efficiency gap. On substantial resolution output, the disposal rate for operational FTCs stands at approximately 96%, a genuinely impressive completion rate. And on day-to-day trial operations, these courts function on daily hearing schedules, specifically designed to bypass the standard procedural adjournments that slow down regular courts. On implication, fast-track courts provide speedy trials for sexual violence, vulnerable groups, and paper leak cases by reducing delays in the justice system. But here's an honest caveat worth remembering. Despite these high disposal rates, over 2.4 lakh cases remain pending, and long-term reforms genuinely require better infrastructure, more judges, stronger forensic support, and improved investigations. Fast-tracking alone isn't a complete solution. So, to quickly recap for your exam, fast-track courts aim to expedite justice for heinous crimes, POCSO cases, and now examination paper leaks under the 2024 Act. Remember the 14th Finance Commission's recommendation of 1,800 FTCs, the FTC disposal rate of 9.5 cases per month versus 3.3 for regular courts, and the BNSS timeline of completing trials within 2 years. Now, let's move to a genuinely moving history topic, remembering one of India's most fiery freedom fighters, Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Here's the context. The Union Home Minister and Defence Minister paid national tributes to this iconic freedom fighter on his birth anniversary. So, who exactly was Bal Gangadhar Tilak? He was an Indian nationalist, educator, journalist, and social reformer. Now, here's a genuinely fascinating contrast worth remembering. He was revered as the father of the Indian unrest by British colonial authorities, yet called the father of India's revolution by Jawaharlal Nehru. That's exactly the kind of contrasting title UPSC loves testing. He was a key leader of the extremist or nationalist faction within the Indian National Congress prior to the Gandhian era. Now, let's understand his early life and social reforms. He was born on the 23rd of July 1856 in Ratnagiri, Maharashtra, to a middle-class family. On educational reforms, believing that modern nationalistic education was vital for political awakening, he co-founded the Deccan Education Society in 1884 to establish schools like Fergusson College in Pune. And on his social stance, he advocated passionate social reforms while prioritizing political liberation, and he vehemently opposed untouchability, famously declaring, "I would not recognize even God if he said that untouchability was ordained by him." That's a genuinely powerful line worth remembering word for word. Now, let's go through his contributions to the freedom movement, and this is genuinely the heart of his legacy. As a champion of Swaraj and Swadeshi, Tilak transformed the freedom struggle into a mass movement and coined the iconic slogan, "Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it." He led the extremist, or Lal Bal Pal, movement against moderate politics after the partition of Bengal in 1905. Now pause here, because his sedition trials and Mandalay exile are genuinely dense with dates, so let's slow down. In 1897, he was convicted of sedition for his writings in Kesari, an event that actually helped him emerge as a national leader rather than silencing him. And from 1908 to 1914, he was sentenced to 6 years in Mandalay prison, in Burma, where he authored important scholarly works despite his imprisonment. On the Home Rule League and Lucknow Pact, he founded the Indian Home Rule League in 1916 at Pune to demand self-government. He also helped unite moderates and extremists and played a key role in the Lucknow Pact of 1916 between the Congress and the Muslim League. Now, let's understand his literary works and journalism, because these are genuinely testable too. On his journalistic organs, he founded 2 influential newspapers to educate the masses and critique British misrule: Kesari, a Marathi daily newspaper through which he preached nationalist doctrines, and Maharatha, an English weekly newspaper. On his major books, Gita Rahasya, written in 1915 during his imprisonment in Mandalay, is a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, emphasizing Karma Yoga, the philosophy of selfless action. And the Arctic Home in the Vedas, from 1903, proposed a novel origin theory regarding the ancestral home of the Aryans. Now, let's briefly go through the key organizations associated with Tilak. There's the Deccan Education Society, co-founded in 1884 to promote nationalist education in Maharashtra. There's the Indian National Congress, which he joined in 1889 and where he led the nationalist or extremist wing. There's the Indian Home Rule League, established in 1916 to demand self-rule across Maharashtra, Karnataka, central provinces and Berar. And there's the Sarvajanik Ganeshotsav and Shivaji Jayanti, which he reorganized into public cultural gatherings to build national unity and cleverly circumvent British bans on political assemblies. A genuinely clever use of religious and cultural festivals for political mobilization. Now, let's talk about his last days and legacy, because this moment in history is genuinely poignant. He passed away on the 1st of August 1920 in Bombay, now Mumbai, at the age of 64. And here's a genuinely striking historical coincidence worth remembering. His death coincided with the launch of Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation movement on that exact same day, marking a symbolic transition from the Tilak era to the Gandhian era of India's freedom struggle. So, to quickly recap for your exam, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, called the father of the Indian unrest by the British and the father of India's revolution by Nehru, coined "Swaraj is my birthright." Remember his sedition trials in 1897 and his Mandalay imprisonment from 1908 to 1914, his newspapers Kesari and Maharatha, and that his death on the 1st of August 1920 coincided with the launch of Gandhi's non-cooperation movement. Now, let's take a fun detour into international sport the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Here's the context. The 2026 Commonwealth Games, officially the 23rd Commonwealth Games, commonly known as Glasgow 2026, run from July 23 to the 2nd of August 2026. So, what exactly is this event? The Commonwealth Games is an international quadrennial multi-sport event featuring top athletes from the 74 member nations and territories of the Commonwealth of Nations. It provides a major global platform for sportsmanship, international camaraderie, and elite athletic performance. The host city is Glasgow, Scotland, and here's a nice historical detail. This marks the fourth time Scotland has hosted the Games, following Edinburgh in 1970 and 1986, and Glasgow in 2014. Now, on its compact footprint, this edition is hosted across just 4 major existing venues within an 8-mile corridor. The OVO Hydro, or Scottish Event Campus, hosts netball, 3x3 basketball, boxing, judo, bowls, weightlifting, and the ceremonies. Scotstoun Stadium hosts athletics and para-athletics. Tollcross International Swimming Centre hosts swimming and para-swimming. And the Commonwealth Arena and Sir Chris Hoy Velodrome host artistic gymnastics and track or para-track cycling. Now, let's understand the host selection history and emergency handover, because this is genuinely a dramatic story, so let's slow down. On the initial award and Victoria cancellation, the Australian state of Victoria was originally selected to host in April 2022. However, in July 2023, the state government abruptly cancelled its hosting agreement, citing projected cost escalations, reaching a genuinely staggering 6 to 7 billion Australian dollars. That's a massive cost blowout that forced organisers back to the drawing board. On Glasgow's rescue plan, in 2024, Commonwealth Games Scotland proposed a scaled-back, low-cost concept using pre-existing infrastructure. Financed largely by an Australian $200 million compensation payout from Victoria, along with backing from the Commonwealth Games Federation, the Scottish Government officially agreed to take over hosting rights, without requiring any local taxpayer funds, a genuinely smart rescue solution born out of a crisis. Now, coming to the key features of Glasgow 2026. There's a streamlined 10-sport program featuring 10 able-bodied sports: athletics, swimming, weightlifting, boxing, judo, artistic gymnastics, track cycling, 3x3 basketball, netball, and bowls. There's also record-integrated parasports, and this is genuinely a landmark detail. It includes 47 medal events across 6 integrated parasports: para-athletics, para-swimming, para-powerlifting, para-track cycling, 3x3 wheelchair basketball, and para-bowls, making it the largest parasport integration in Commonwealth Games history. Hold that fact firmly, it's exactly the kind of superlative UPSC loves testing. There's also no athletes' village this time. The Games operate without a costly, dedicated village, and athletes are instead accommodated in local university student housing and commercial hotels across Glasgow, another cost-saving measure. And on historical transitions, this is genuinely the first Commonwealth Games celebrated under King Charles III as head of the Commonwealth and under CGF President Donald Rucare. On significance, this edition demonstrates a cost-effective, venue reuse approach, offering a genuinely sustainable blueprint for future Commonwealth Games. And it serves as a key preparation event for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, helping athletes gain valuable international competitive experience. So, to quickly recap for your exam, Glasgow 2026 is the 2026 Commonwealth Games, marking Scotland's 4th time hosting, after taking over from Victoria, Australia, which withdrew in 2023 over cost concerns. Remember, it features 10 able-bodied sports and a record 47 parasport medal events, and it's the first Games under King Charles III as head of the Commonwealth. Now, let's move to a genuinely significant international relations development: the US-Saudi 123 Agreement on Civil Nuclear Cooperation. The context is that the United States and Saudi Arabia signed this landmark civilian nuclear cooperation pact, known as a 123 Agreement, alongside a bilateral safeguards agreement. So, what exactly is this agreement? It's a bilateral framework under Section 123 of the U.S. Atomic Energy Act of 1954. It establishes the mandatory legal baseline required for the United States to transfer significant nuclear technology, reactors, material, and expertise to a foreign nation, specifically for peaceful purposes. On the parties involved for the United States, it was signed by U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright under the administration of President Donald Trump. And for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it was signed by Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, backed by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. Its aim is to help Saudi Arabia diversify its energy grid away from crude oil reliance, powering domestic desalination plants and air conditioning with clean atomic energy instead. A genuinely practical use case for a country that relies heavily on both. Now, let's understand the history and strategic evolution behind this deal, because it's genuinely a story of shifting positions. On the earlier deadlock, the US had previously insisted that Saudi Arabia accept the gold standard, meaning no domestic uranium enrichment or reprocessing, and that it normalized ties with Israel. But on the 2026 policy shift, the New Deal drops the Israel normalization condition entirely and allows flexibility for US-supported domestic uranium enrichment. A genuinely significant softening of the earlier US position. Now, coming to the key features of the agreement, there's US technology transfer, allowing US firms to supply civil nuclear reactors, components, and technical expertise. There's a domestic enrichment option, permitting Saudi uranium enrichment in US-built facilities, subject to agreed safeguards. There are bilateral safeguards, including a verification framework to ensure nuclear material is not diverted for weapons. Now here's a genuinely important caveat. There's no IAEA additional protocol requirement, meaning the deal does not require the more intrusive inspections that the IAEA additional protocol would otherwise mandate. And there's congressional review. The agreement is subject to a 90 legislative day review by the US Congress before it can take full effect. On implications, domestic uranium enrichment could heighten regional proliferation concerns and potentially fuel a broader nuclear arms race in the region, a genuine geopolitical worry given the Middle East's tensions. And this deal strengthens US influence in Saudi Arabia's nuclear sector, while limiting opportunities for rivals like Russia and China to step into that space instead. So, to quickly recap for your exam, the US-Saudi 123 agreement is a civil nuclear cooperation pact under Section 123 of the 1954 US Atomic Energy Act, dropping the earlier Israel normalization condition. Remember, it permits domestic uranium enrichment in US-built facilities, does not require the IAEA additional protocol, and is subject to a 90-day US congressional review. Now, let's move to a genuinely practical fintech topic that could change how you pay for things: the proposed offline UPI system. The context is that the National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI, is developing an offline UPI payment system, enabling near-field communication or NFC-based tap-and-pay transactions without needing active internet connectivity. Now think about that for a second. Paying digitally, even when your phone has zero signal, that's genuinely useful in India's crowded metros and remote villages alike. So, what exactly is this system? It's an advanced, contactless payment architecture built on top of the existing Unified Payments Interface or UPI framework. It allows users to complete digital transactions at merchant point-of-sale terminals, even when both the customer's smartphone and the merchant's terminal lack a real-time internet connection or mobile network access. It's engineered and designed by the NPCI, the umbrella organization managing retail payments and settlement systems in India. Its primary aim is to eliminate digital payment failures caused by weak, intermittent, or absent cellular or Wi-Fi connectivity, expanding UPI usage into underground metro networks, in-flight services, remote rural markets, and during urban network outages. Now, let's understand how it actually works, step by step, because this mechanism is genuinely clever. First, there's pre-authorization, the online phase. While connected to the internet, the user's phone secures a set of cryptographic tokens or a prepaid monetary balance, authorized directly by their bank. Second, there's local exchange, the offline phase, When offline, the user simply taps their phone against an NFC-enabled merchant POS terminal, and payment credentials and tokens are directly exchanged locally via short-range radio waves. And third, there's deferred settlement, the reconnection phase. The transaction record is temporarily stored on both devices. And once either the merchant terminal or the customer's phone reconnects to the internet, the encrypted transaction log is pushed to NPCI for final bank-to-bank settlement. Genuinely elegant, the payment happens instantly offline, but the actual money movement waits until connectivity returns. Now, coming to the key features of this system, there's dual offline NFC compatibility, executing tap and pay merchant transactions, even if both the customer's phone and the merchant's POS terminal are completely disconnected from the network. There's cryptographic tokenization and fraud prevention, replacing live bank balance verification with single-use, pre-authorized tokens stored in the smartphone's hardware, preventing double spending and safeguarding actual bank credentials. There's a higher transaction limit, up to Rs 2,000, designed for medium-value transactions, offering a higher transaction threshold than existing small-value mechanisms like UPI Lite. And there's a merchant-centric store and forward model, unlike UPI Lite X, which focuses on person-to-person transfers. This system specifically targets retail POS infrastructure, letting merchants accept payments continuously, even during network blackouts. Now, let's be honest about the limitations too, because every new system has trade-offs. There are transaction cap restrictions, capped at a maximum per transaction limit, typically Rs 2,000, and constrained by the total pre-allocated token balance stored on the device. To minimize financial liability, there are hardware requirement constraints, requiring both the consumer's smartphone and the merchant's POS machine to feature built-in NFC chips, which naturally excludes older or basic feature phones without short-range radio hardware. And there's delayed risk reconciliation, since deferred settlement creates a brief lag between when a payment is executed and when money actually transfers between bank accounts, requiring robust risk engine algorithms to reconcile duplicate claims or edge case disputes. So, to quickly recap for your exam, the proposed offline UPI system developed by NPCI enables NFC-based tap and pay transactions up to Rs 2,000 without needing internet connectivity. Remember its three-phase mechanism: pre-authorization online, local exchange offline via NFC, and deferred settlement upon reconnection, and its key limitation, requiring NFC-enabled hardware on both the customer and merchant sides. Finally, let's turn to today's mapping topic, and this one's tied to a historic diplomatic visit, Romania. The context is that the President of India arrived in Romania, the final stop of her three-nation Europe tour, marking the first Indian presidential state visit to the country in over 30 years. Now, just take a moment to appreciate that over 3 decades since the last presidential visit, that's genuinely a long gap in high-level diplomatic contact. So, what exactly is Romania? It's a sovereign country located in southeastern Europe. Historically shaped by Dacian and Roman roots, it transitioned from a communist satellite state in 1989 to a modern democratic republic. And here's a genuinely important detail for prelims. It's a full member of both NATO since 2004 and the European Union since 2007. Its capital is Bucharest, which also serves as the country's largest economic and cultural hub. On bordering nations situated in southeastern Europe, around the Transylvanian Basin and the Danube River Delta, Romania is bordered by 5 nations and 1 major sea: Ukraine, Moldova, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, and the Black Sea. Now, let's go through its key features, because the geography here is genuinely rich and varied. On symmetrical topography, the country is divided into approximately 1/3 mountains, 1/3 hills and tablelands, and 1/3 fertile lowlands and plains. A genuinely balanced geographic profile. On the Carpathian Mountains arc, this forms a central crescent, containing 3 distinct sections. The Eastern Carpathians are known for volcanic cones, mineral springs, and copper and lead deposits. The Southern Carpathians, also called the Transylvanian Alps, contain Romania's highest peak, Mount Moldovianu, at 2,544 meters, and the scenic Iron Gate Gorge along the Danube River. and the Western Carpathians are rich in iron, marble, and metallic ores. There's also the Transylvanian Basin and tablelands, the elevated heartland of the country, bordered by rolling plateaus and subcarpathian hills. And there are fertile Chernozem plains. The southern Wallachian plain and western plains are covered with humus-rich black soils, known as Chernozem, making the country a genuine agricultural powerhouse for cereals. And finally, there's the Danube Delta, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, located where the Danube River empties into the Black Sea. It's Europe's second largest river delta, and a critical wetland biosphere. On significance, Romania serves as a key EU trade hub for Indian investments in IT, pharmaceuticals, automobiles, and renewable energy, supporting deeper India-EU economic ties. And located on the Black Sea with the port of Constanța, Romania is genuinely vital for regional security, supply chains, and Europe-Asia trade connectivity. So, to quickly recap for your exam, Romania, with its capital Bucharest, is a NATO member since 2004 and an EU member since 2007, bordered by Ukraine, Moldova, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, and the Black Sea. Remember its highest peak, Mount Moldoveanu, at 2,544 meters in the southern Carpathians, and the Danube Delta, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and Europe's second largest river delta. And that brings us to the end of today's Prelims in Focus. In today's session, we covered fast-track courts from GS Paper 2, Polity and Judiciary, Bal Gangadhar Tilak from GS Paper 1, History, the 2026 Commonwealth Games from Miscellaneous, an important topic for the UPSC Prelims examination, the US-Saudi 123 Agreement from GS Paper 2, International Relations, the proposed offline UPI system from GS Paper 3, Economy and Science and Technology and Romania under mapping. For the complete current affairs article and today's practice MCQs, visit insightsonindia.com using the link given in the description. Also, subscribe to the Insights IAS YouTube channel and join our official Telegram group for regular UPSC-related updates and learning resources. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you again in the next session.